The sky split open without apology, and Cal Morgan had just climbed down from a leaky trailer roof when he heard the scream. He froze halfway through, wiping his hands on an oil-stained rag, heart lurching. Rain had come fast, slanting hard through the pines, thick as river water. 10 minutes ago, it had been hot enough to boil breath. Now the storm roared like it had bones to pick, and the scream, it cut through it all. Cal scanned the marsh, boots squishing against the soaked grass, his jacket already plastered to his back. He squinted through the gray, then saw it. Just beyond the edge of the sagging wooden bridge, a black SUV sideways in the current, nose already dipping. The creek had swelled over its banks. Water churned, angry, brown, hungry. He ran. Earlier that morning, Miss Hattie had rocked herself stiff on the porch and muttered at the clouds. "Rain's got a memory around here," she said, waving her finger like she was cussing out a ghost. "Comes back just when you forget how it feels." He hadn't answered, just grabbed his lunchbox and left. But now her words chased him across the marsh, tagging behind the thunder. The SUV shifted again, headlights blinking once, like an eye fluttering shut. Inside, a woman slammed her palms against the glass. Her mouth moved. Open, close, open again. But the roar of the storm swallowed her voice whole. Cal didn't think. He was already on the railing. The bridge groaned beneath him, soaked boards sagging under weight and water. He jumped to the hood. The vehicle rocked hard. Water lapped at the door handles now. "Hang on!" he barked, pulling the crowbar from his tool belt. He braced his feet, swung hard once, twice. Glass shattered on the third, exploding outward. Rain stung his face. Wind slapped like fists. But her eyes locked on his. Wild, terrified, desperate. "I can't," she gasped. "I can't breathe." "I got you," he said. "Look at me." He leaned in, slashed her seatbelt with his pocket knife. Her hands trembled too hard to help. Cal reached in, arms soaked to the shoulder, and hauled her up. She coughed, choked on panic and rain. "Don't try to swim," he told her, voice low but sure. "You hold on. I'll do the swimming." The SUV jerked as the current caught the back end. The tires lifted. Cal grunted, pulled her arm over his shoulder. "Now," he hissed, dragging her toward the bridge rail. The water hit like a punch. Cal held her tight as they slid off the hood, both feet barely finding purchase on the sunken asphalt below. Branches scraped past. A child's tricycle bobbed behind them, then vanished. She whimpered, fingers digging into his jacket. "I got you," he repeated, louder now. "I got you." They didn't go for the road. It was gone. He angled them sideways along the embankment toward the shadow of a tool shed half swallowed in vines. It had been abandoned years ago. Cal remembered throwing rocks at its tin roof when he was 9, just to hear the sound echo. Now he needed it to hold. He shoved the door open with a shoulder and half fell inside, dragging her over the threshold. A wave chased their heels. He kicked the rusted wheelbarrow over, wedged it in place. The shed smelled of oil and mildew and old heat. Water crept in beneath the boards, rising fast. She collapsed against the wall, shivering so hard her teeth clacked. "Here," he muttered, shrugging off his jacket, wrapping it around her. "Stay with me." Her skin was ice. He rummaged in his pack, pulled out a tarp, then a frayed emergency blanket, a half-squashed granola bar, and a flask of warm, stale water. "Eat something," he said. "You crash if you don't." She shook her head, not asking, just doing. She blinked, eyes unfocused. Cal sat beside her, back against the wall. Rain hammered the roof in a rhythmic fits. Water lapped at their boots. He checked her pulse, thready but there. "You ever met a goose named Otis?" he asked. Her brow furrowed slightly. "Meanest bird I ever knew," he said. "Chased me straight off Miss Kelly's porch when I was 10. Thought I could impress her granddaughter. Got a scar on my knee instead." A sound, barely audible, escaped her, almost a laugh. Cal kept going. He told her about his grandma's pie crust recipe, about fixing up a tractor with chewing gum and duct tape once, about the time lightning hit the steeple during Pastor Tom's sermon and the choir ran screaming. Her head slumped against his shoulder. The storm howled. The creek had turned into a river. The shed creaked, but the walls held. At one point, her breath hitched. She whispered, barely audible, "I can't swim. I don't want to die." Cal turned to her. Her face was pale, wet hair stuck to her cheek. He leaned in, gently cupping her shoulder, and said, "Then don't." Her body shook once, then stilled. They stayed like that. Minutes blurred. A flash of lightning lit the shed, just long enough for Cal to see something silver glinting from beneath her shirt. A token, round, etched. It caught the light, then disappeared again beneath the folds of his jacket. Thunder rolled overhead. She stirred, looked at him, lips cracked, voice frayed. "I don't want to die unknown." Cal didn't ask her name. By the time the rescue boat arrived, the rain had slowed, but she was already pulling away. The light was different now, pale and uncertain, filtering through warped slats and casting silver puddles on the rotted shed floor. The water had dropped a few inches overnight, just enough for the muck to settle and the fog to lift in threads. Birds were starting to return, distant calls from somewhere behind the tree line. Cal sat on the floor with his back against the far wall, legs stretched out, boots still soaked. He held the first aid kit open on his lap, sorting through its tired contents with the same care he gave to repairing a cracked axle. The woman, silent, bruised, half-sprawled, watched him from the corner. Her breath had steadied, though she winced when she tried to move her leg. "You got a cut," he said finally, voice low, like sound might still startle her. "Didn't notice till this morning." She didn't answer, just gave a slow nod. Cal bent down, rolled up the soaked pant leg carefully. The gash was red, angry, but not deep. He poured the last of his bottled water over it, then patted it dry with a torn bandana. "Won't sting much," he said, wrapping gauze tight. "But you'll want a doctor to check it proper." She looked at him, eyes unreadable, the kind of look Cal had seen in deer before they bolted. He sat back against the wall again. Between them, a granola bar lay split in half on the floor next to the dented flask. She hadn't touched hers yet. The silence thickened, not awkward, just full. "I need to leave as soon as possible," she said after a long time. Her voice was quieter than the storm had been, but heavier somehow. Cal didn't ask why. Instead, he nodded once. "Roads are still out, but I got a friend with a ham radio. Rescue crews have been working Lower Marsh since sunrise." She pulled his jacket closer around her, then reached for the granola bar, took a slow bite, chewed, like the act itself steadied her. "I don't usually," she began, then stopped. He didn't fill the gap. Outside, a motor hummed faintly, tires crunching over wet gravel, then a voice, sharp, clear, clipped by static. "Rescue team, anyone inside?" She turned toward the door, hand bracing the wall. "That's them." Cal stood and pushed the wheelbarrow aside. The door creaked open with effort. Two men in orange vests and chest-high waiters stepped in, shining lights briefly over the interior. "You folks okay?" Cal nodded. "Found her last night. SUV went off the bridge." The taller of the two scribbled something in a notebook. The other helped her stand. She winced, but said nothing. At the threshold, she hesitated. Her hand dipped into the pocket of his jacket. When she pulled it free, her fingers were curled around something small and silver. She stepped close and pressed it into his palm. "That makes you unforgettable," she said. Her hand lingered for a second longer than necessary. Then she turned and followed the crew to the boat without looking back. Cal stood there, the token still resting in his hand. He didn't call after her, didn't ask, didn't say her name, because he still didn't know it. He watched until the boat disappeared around the bend, swallowed by the reeds and the mist curling off the water, and, still, he stood. By the time he got back to the house, the sky had gone soft. Miss Hattie was already sitting on the porch in her robe, her coffee steaming in a chipped mug with faded flowers. "Told you rain had a memory," she said, not looking at him. comes back like it owns the place. He sat beside her, slow and wordless. After a while, she added, "People show you who they are by what they do when nobody's looking." Cal didn't respond. He just opened his hand. The silver token caught the light, etched with a wave and a star. Fade to black. Caption: 2 years later. The boy on the cover wore his necklace, his crooked brow scar, and the same tired eyes. Cal hadn't expected to stay long. He'd come to the library to return a water pump manual, nothing more. The town had barely started whispering fall. The trees burned orange at the edges, and plastic turkeys clung to store windows like they knew they were running out of time. He pushed open the library door with one shoulder, nodding toward the small bell that hadn't rung right in years. The scent inside was a strange blend of fresh paint and old dust, like someone had tried to scrub out history but hadn't quite managed. Mrs. Dalton was behind the desk, perched on her usual stool, her gray hair pulled back in a bun that always looked like it had more memory than most people's lifetimes. "Well now," she said, peering over her glasses, "if it isn't Cal Morgan bringing back a book without overdue fines, miracles never cease." He offered her a soft smile, slid the manual across the counter. "Still working on that community well pump." "I know what you're working on," she replied, then leaned in conspiratorially. "And I know what you need to see." Before he could respond, she was already hobbling from behind the desk, motioning him toward the back. "They redid the children's section," she called. "New shelves, real lighting, not that flicker-buzz nonsense we had for decades." Cal followed, boots clicking against the laminate floor. He wasn't sure what he was being led to, but Mrs. Dalton had the determined look of someone who'd just uncovered treasure. When they turned the corner, he stopped. In the center of the children's display was an easel, and on that easel sat a single book, propped like it mattered. The Boy and the Flood. The cover was hand-painted, almost dreamlike. A boy stood waist-deep in dark water, a torch held high. A woman reached for his hand from the waves, but it wasn't just a boy. It was him. Same wild brown hair, the scar over his brow. Even the necklace, a bit of copper wire looped around a gear piece he'd kept since childhood, was there, right down to the way it tilted left. His breath caught. He stepped forward, barely aware of Mrs. Dalton smiling softly behind him. Cal reached for the book, fingers brushing the edges like it might vanish. He opened the cover slowly. "To the one who saved me. You never asked my name, but you gave me yours. W.A." He stared, page after page unfolded with watercolors and quiet words. A woman lost in a storm. A boy who said little, but stayed. A shed with leaking walls. A voice in the dark that said, "Then don't." Cal's hand trembled slightly as he turned the next page. A child nearby giggled over a different book, oblivious. Another page, the boy bandaging her leg, sharing a granola bar, refusing to ask who she was. He closed the book slowly. "Is that you, mister?" Cal blinked. A little girl with curly hair and a wide pink headband had wandered close, pointing at the cover. He didn't answer, just held the book a little tighter to his chest. Behind the wide front windows, a car rolled to a stop. Cal's eyes lifted. A black SUV. Sleek, familiar. The door opened. She stepped out. Her hair was longer now, pulled back into a loose braid. Her coat was damp at the shoulders. She didn't hesitate, didn't look around, just walked straight toward the entrance. Cal didn't move. The bell above the door gave a tired jingle. She walked into the library, hair damp, eyes locked on Cal. "It's really you," she said. He barely whispers, "Wren?" "You didn't forget me," Cal said. Wren looked down. "I tried, but it never stuck." The diner smelled of brined turkey and coffee that had been sitting too long. At the window, someone had taped a paper pilgrim holding a pumpkin pie. The heater rattled behind the booth like it had the flu. Penny's porch hadn't changed. Same chipped mugs, same green Formica tables. But Cal noticed something new, Wren's book resting between them, the cover facing down. She set it there gently, right over a worn, heart-shaped scar in the surface, where, years ago, his father had carved a set of initials with a pocket knife. Wren glanced at it too. "I remember you telling me about this place," she said. "When we were in that shed, you said the coffee was always burnt and the cornbread was worth the regret." Cal gave a soft, breathy chuckle. "Still is." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small folder. "I want to show you something." He tensed, but nodded. She opened the folder slowly, spreading out a single-page overview across the table. Floodlight centers, community-run emergency prep stations, built by locals, trained by locals. The first one? "I want it here, in Willow Bend." Cal scanned the page. Diagrams, supply lists, a logo in the corner. "I've been working on this for a year," she said. Quietly, thought about how many lives might have been saved if they'd had a place like this nearby. "I don't want to just build it. I want you to help lead it." He leaned back. "I fix pumps, Wren. Oil changes, tiller blades. I don't run programs." "You ran a flood rescue," she said, "with a crowbar and no plan." His jaw twitched. "I know it's a lot," she continued, "but I also know you know this place better than anyone I could hire. It's not just about structures. It's about trust. About staying." He looked out the window. Across the street, the hardware store was stringing up lights that blinked red and green. Inside, a kid dragged a plastic sled across linoleum. "You remember Juno?" Cal asked. "Girl from 2 houses down, built a raft out of milk jugs and rope after last year's storm." Wren nodded. "She'll run circles around anyone who walks into your training room." He paused. "All right, I'll come see it. New Orleans, no promises." She smiled, not triumphant, relieved. That night, Cal slept in her guest room. The city would wait till morning. The walls were bare. The sheets smelled like detergent and something vaguely citrus. He placed the silver token on the dresser beside a lamp shaped like a heron. Then he turned out the light. New Orleans didn't look like anything he remembered. It had been 10 years, maybe more. The Foundation's headquarters was glass and steel, humming with elevators and shoes that didn't scuff. Russ Keene met him in the lobby, pressed suit, brittle smile. "You're the guy from the flood," Russ said, already walking. "We've read the story, great PR, not that that's why you're here." Cal said nothing. The days moved fast. Wren introduced him to the team, showed him drafts for the training modules, asked his opinion. He gave it. She listened. Each night he returned to the guest apartment above the office, alone. On the 4th night, working late, Cal searched for a form Wren had asked for. Filing was sloppy, digital and physical records stacked together. He flipped through a mislabeled folder, then stopped. Project, Eleanor Flood Control Dam. Status, completed incident report. Structural failure during storm casualties, 3. Displaced, 42. Stamp, Lavinia. Ashford Foundation, approved. He read it again, and again. Wren's name, clean and inked, sat at the top. He didn't sleep. At dawn, Cal walked into her office. The paper in his hand shook slightly. She looked up, eyes tired, but soft. "I need to know if this is real," he said. Wren took the file, scanned it once. Her face paled. "I've never seen this." "It's stamped. I know. But this wasn't run through me." His voice stayed low. 3 people died. "I didn't, Cal, I swear, I didn't know." He shook his head. "That's the problem. You didn't know." Later, she came to his door. The file was still in her hands. Her voice was hollow. "Russ fast-tracked it. He used my name. Bypassed the audits. I went back through the logs. There's a whole string of approvals I never touched." Cal looked at her, not with anger now, but something worse, disappointment. "You say you're building something good," he said, "but you let this happen. under your name. I've spent the last 2 years trying to build right, she said. I didn't see what was happening behind me. You fund things that kill people now? The question wasn't shouted. It didn't have to be. Wren took a step back, like the words had weight. He went upstairs, packed his bag in silence. Before he left, he placed the silver token on the nightstand. She found it an hour later. On his pillow, a scrap of paper. I can't build something with someone I no longer trust. Cal didn't open the notebook until the 3rd day. Rain had returned, light and constant, like it didn't know how to stop. The house was quiet in the kind of way that felt deliberate, not just empty, but hollowed. Miss Hattie's scarf still hung on the back of the door, a faded pink loop of cotton that smelled faintly of lemon drops and cedar. Her rocker sat still in the corner, unmoved for weeks now. Cal stood at the counter, kettle whistling sharp and steady behind him, but he didn't lift it. The sound filled the kitchen, rose, then died on its own. He stared at the notebook on the table. It was thick, leather-bound, edges softened by time. The cover smelled of wood smoke and lavender, like something kept close to the skin. Wren had left it on his porch 2 mornings ago. She hadn't knocked. He hadn't chased. Now, the rain tapped like fingers on the tin awning outside, and the fire in the stove burned low, just enough to fight off the damp. He reached for the notebook. The first page was written in clean, careful script. 3 weeks after the flood. I still dream of your hands pulling me back. Not the rain, not the glass, but your voice. He kept reading. Pages shifted between sketches, rough, almost childlike, and fragments of thought. A boy drawn from memory crouched beside a wheelbarrow, a tool shed swallowed in vines, a crowbar dripping water. One sketch was just a hand reaching. Another, the back of a man's neck, crooked scar, damp collar. I didn't know your name, I still don't, but I remember how you smelled like gasoline and rain. Cal exhaled slow. Another page. Every boardroom felt louder after you, every applause more hollow. I built things, I funded clinics, but I still woke up hearing your voice. He paused, hands resting flat against the open pages. The fire cracked behind him. At one point he stood, walked to the stove, tossed another log in. The notebook hovered in his hands. For a moment he stared at the flames, but he didn't throw it. Instead, he walked back to the table. One page had a taped envelope, his name on the front, in another handwriting. Miss Hattie's. He opened it. Sometimes forgiveness isn't deserved. That's why it's real. No more. Just that. He ran a hand down his face, then turned the page. I searched for your eyes in every town I passed. I stopped at diners, stared at men under baseball caps. I never forgot. I know I hurt you. I hurt myself too. The final page held only one line. If you come, I'll be where the flood took me. If not, I'll wait anyway. The road to the bridge hadn't changed much. Mud still pooled at the edges. Spanish moss dipped low like it was listening. Wren sat on the bench near the water, her coat pulled tight. She wasn't watching the river. She was watching the curve in the road where he might come. Cal parked behind a stand of trees and walked the last stretch on foot. His boots made no sound on the wet gravel. When he reached the bench, he didn't speak. Just sat beside her, both of them staring out where the bridge slanted across the water. They didn't look at each other. After a while, his voice broke the stillness. You wrote it for me. She didn't smile. She just whispered, only you. The sky was wide and clean when the ribbon was cut, and Cal thought, maybe the flood wasn't the worst thing that ever happened here. The sun caught the tin roof of the new floodlight center, turning it the color of cornflowers. The building wasn't much, just clean white walls, a bright blue roof, and windows that opened properly, but folks came from all over to see it. Folding chairs lined up in crooked rows. Kids with juice boxes zigzagged between the legs of retirees who clapped even when they didn't know what for. Cal stood by the edge of the gravel path, holding a length of rope in one hand and a milk jug in the other. Loop it once, he said, then again, but don't pull too tight, or it'll slip when it counts. Juno sat cross-legged at his feet, tongue pressed to her upper lip in deep concentration. Her small fingers moved slow but sure, and when she finished the knot, Cal nodded once. Perfect. The girl beamed. "I'm going to teach my little brother," she said. He ruffled her hair. "Good. That's how it sticks." Across the yard, Wren was straightening a crooked banner that read, "Grand Opening. Willow Bend Floodlight Center." Her hair was loose today, tucked behind her ears, and a thermos of cocoa sat under one arm. She adjusted the sign, stepped back, then turned to check on the pies cooling on the folding table. No speeches, no cameras, just folks. Mrs. Beale brought sweet potato pie. Mr. Rudy folded napkins into triangles like he used to on submarines. Pastor Tom stood off to the side, humming quietly until someone pressed a styrofoam plate into his hands. Later, Cal found himself standing beside Wren without even realizing he'd walked over. She handed him a paper cup. "Still put too much cinnamon in the cocoa." He took a sip. "Tastes fine to me." A little girl in polka dots tugged at Wren's coat. "Are you and Mr. Cal married?" Wren blinked. Cal chuckled. "Not yet," he said, sipping again. "But she still might come to her senses." Wren rolled her eyes, but the corner of her mouth curled. As the sun began to dip behind the trees, casting long, golden lines across the bridge, someone brought out Miss Hattie's old radio and set it on the windowsill. The dial was finicky, but the static gave way to a familiar gospel tune, soft, humming, warm. Cal stood beside Wren, watching the kids race each other with their rescue vests flapping behind them like superhero capes. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small object. It was a token, silver again, but this time etched differently. "I made another," she said, "but this one's not for forgetting. This time I want you to know who gave it." He turned it over in his palm. The initials were there. Plain. He didn't speak right away, just looked at her. Then he reached into his back pocket and pulled out a tiny box. Inside was a ring. Not gold, not silver, just cedar wood, polished until it shone like amber. One word was etched on the inside. Stay. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. They stood on the rebuilt bridge as the last light of day filtered through the pines. Below them, laughter echoed from the yard, calls of "watch this" and again, mixing with the music and the wind. Someone, maybe Mr. Rudy, raised a cup and toasted over the hum of conversation. To folks who didn't give up, and to rain that didn't wash away the best parts of us. The gospel tune played on, and Cal and Wren, without holding hands or making promises, simply stood together, not waiting, just staying. The sky above Willow Bend was clear that December morning, but what lingered in the air wasn't just sunshine. It was proof that some storms leave behind more than damage. Cal had once pulled a stranger from a river, never asking who she was, and in return he was reminded that kindness often loops back in quiet, unexpected ways. When we stop judging others by what we see and instead listen to what they do, something in us begins to mend. Like a porch light left on through the night, even the smallest act of goodness has a way of leading someone home. If this story stirred something in your heart, perhaps today is a good day to pass that feeling on.